Oh, hi there. Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Oh, I was just perusing this book. That's the Joint. It's a small read. Small read. I like to go through it every now and then. You know, I read it a few times a week just to stay abreast of. This is the Hip Hop Studies Reader. If you're familiar with it, you'll know that it contains a wealth of information about hip hop studies. And oddly enough, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight: hip hop and education, with one of the editors. I think the original writer, editor, compiler, whatever. We'll find out. His name is Murray Forman. He'll be on with us tonight. And I'm just perusing. Like I say, it's only 768 pages. So I run through this once or twice a week just to kind of stay on top of things. Oddly enough, this is the show before the show, y'all. I know y'all just trickling in, tuning in, checking us out. Somewhere in here, there's a whole section about recommended podcasts for hip-hop studies. And this podcast is in this book. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? We're going to find out tonight how much I had to pay Murray Forman to put it. No, I'm just kidding. Murray Forman will be with us talking about hip-hop studies. As you can see on the screen there below, right around here. We'll also be talking about archiving. We'll be talking about music education. There's some great events happening again, it's sometimes we get a little academic focused on this show, but always want the practitioners and fans and people who appreciate hip-hop sort of on an elevated level to know about these things because there's a lot of input that you could have to make sure that your music and culture is properly represented. So without further ado, let's start this show. It goes a little something like this. Hit it.
Many faces.
You sick for this one. Sick for this one. Sick for this one.
The thing about hip hop today is it's smart. It's insightful. The way that they can communicate a complex message in a very short space is remarkable. And a lot of these kids, they're not going to be reading the New York Times. That's not how they're getting their information.
My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Hip hop culture is more than music.
Peace to you and speak the truth. Show 'em what peace can do when there reach for you.
My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Rap is something you do. Hip hop is something you live.
So hip hop didn't invent anything, but hip hop reinvented everything.
This is Baby Girl Faces. And this episode is brought to you by
Sir, once again, it's your man, Many Faces. This is Hip Hop Can Save America, the world's most enlightening hip-hop live stream. And again, thanks to our patrons, folks that are helping pay the bills in the show. You saw some of them. I haven't updated it yet. Thanks also to Kath and Morgan and Patrick and Chris J. Their names will be part of that wonderful montage sooner than later, as soon as I get to it. Tonight, again, hip-hop and education and archiving and music education. This book right here is called That's the Joint, the Hip-Hop Studies Reader. Again, small thing. I read this a couple times a week just to stay, kind of on top of all the hip-hop academic stuff. Maybe twice a week. Sometimes three, but I don't want to, I'm not trying to make anyone feel silly. But we're going to talk about the editor of that book, Murray Forman, Dr. Murray Forman, who's teaches up at Northwestern and has been, putting this into now the third edition of this book. And we're going to talk about why hip-hop needs a studies reader and why this book is so influential and so important in the field of hip-hop in academia. We'll also be joined by Randy Swiggum, who will be talking about this. I'm going to show you right now. This is a really dope, what do you call it, thing that's happening. Don't forget, I'm doing all the sharing and all the things myself, so bear with me. Solo, go away. This is going to be dope. This is the fourth This is the fourth annual Hip Hop Pedagogy Virtual Music Educator Workshop happening this Saturday, February 24th. Again, a lot of stuff we do here is academic based. A lot of folks I work with and a lot of people we're working with hip hop in the sort of higher education realm. It doesn't mean that it's just for educators and it doesn't mean that it's just for academics. I want to make sure that artists, practitioners, people who care about music and culture, hip hop music and culture being represented the right way, are participating in these things. Most of these are free. This one is certainly free. This will be happening online through the folks at the Madison, Wisconsin School District, and I'll be keynoting this thing. It's going to be a great thing. We're going to talk about it a little bit with our good friend Randy Swiggum. He'll let you know more about it. I'm putting the shouts to Andrew Wang in the chat, who bought That's the Joint, the Hip Hop Studies Reader, and is registered for this event. It's a good event, especially if you're into music education, for sure. But even if you're not, like I said, it's not a bad thing to pay attention to some of these events. Now, I'll be talking about them. That's what we do. Maybe it's your first time tuning in, checking out, like, what the hell is this? This is crazy. This is Hip Hop Can Save America, the world's most enlightening hip hop live stream. It's an extension of the podcast that we've been doing for a couple of years. We have done dozens and dozens of episodes. If you're just finding out about us, we talk to hip hop educators and activists and teaching artists and people doing hip hop theater and any kind of intersection of hip hop and sort of like not entertainment. You feel me? Like, not necessarily artists who are making music to be, making music for the sake of making music. The intersections, the ways that hip hop, music, and culture are being used to uplift humanity and improve society. So that's what we talk about here. If that's the kind of thing you're into, then you're in the right place. If you just want to know about like who's dropping new albums and blah, blah, there's other shows that are for that. The Can Save America part of Hip Hop Can Save America is the kind of key here, and so that's what we talk about. And I'll give you a little snippet. If you didn't catch last week's show, you might wonder, well, tell me more about what this means when you talk about Hip Hop Can Save America. And I want to play you a clip from last week's show just to catch you up. This is what I mean when I say hip hop can save America. This was last week's guest, Dr. Adia Winfrey, who works out in Alabama to help hip-hop save democracy. Peep.
I came into the civic engagement table, Alabama Forward, and it has been a complete blessing. We have made so many impacts within the state of Alabama. One thing that I got to mention is I was one of the original plaintiffs on the Allen versus Milligan case, which is that Supreme Court case that led to the new map in Alabama, which subsequently changed the redistricting map in Louisiana and Georgia, North Carolina, on and on and on.
Yeah.
And that came from the work that we have done with Transform Alabama. We have just really, really been intentional about using hip hop as a tool of political education and not just having to be about going to the polls, because right. I mean, it goes so much deeper than that, but really engaging people holistically in our political system.
Many faces.
You sick for this one.
So there you have it. Once again, a great example of what we mean when we say hip hop can save America, the type of stuff we talk about on this show, political engagement being one of them. Shouts to Bob Knutson, friend of the show, who wants to know if the Madison, Wisconsin 4th Annual Hip Hop Pedagogy Music Educator Workshop is virtual. It is virtual. It's only happening virtually. Bob, if I was coming to Wisconsin, my friend, you would literally be the first to know. So we'll let you know. Hey, Ada, what up, Miss Thursday? Appreciate you for coming in. Trying to watch on the TV, but it wouldn't let you comment. Right? What fun is this show if you can't comment? I get it. Definitely can't wait for next Tuesday. Me neither. I'm going to talk about that in about 2 seconds. So real quick, before our first guest arrives, once again, one of the keys to this book here, That's the Joint, the Hip Hop Studies Reader, a very small, like a pamphlet of a book that I read every week, 2 or 3 times a week. It's no big deal. Y'all could do it. Reading is easy. Dr. Murray Forman will be joining us to talk about that. Real quick, the events that are coming up that I want you to know about. Again, some of them are academic based. They're conference based. We don't talk about, some of the everyday, concerts and things that are going on unless they have a kind of an edge to them. There's plenty of places you could do that. I'm not downing it. That's important. But what we talk about here is interesting events that kind of, I don't know, I like to say hip-hop culture sort of elevated, different ways of looking at the music and culture. And one of the ways that that's happening is the hip-hop youth Research and Activism Conference. I've talked about them the last few episodes. They're a great youth-led, and I say youth, but it's really college-age kids, so it's not like kids. But, you know, to us old folk, they're kids, but they're doing great work. They run the conference. They decide who does the presentations. It's activism and research-oriented. So it's, again, looking at hip-hop from college students looking at hip-hop in a way that's a little bit more, you know, how can we use hip hop culture to, as we like to talk about on the show, improve society? What research do we need to do? What kind of ways can we interact with activism and political goals to try to make the world a better place? They do a fantastic job of this. I've been a mentor with them. Shouts to Dr. Lauren Kelly, who I've had on this show and who have also been involved in this. This is happening on March 16th at Fordham University in the Bronx, up in the Bronx where the people are fresh, the Boogie Down Bronx. It is confirmed that I will be there again, as I have been every year. Now, normally it happens at Rutgers. You might know this from working with us, but it's going to be at Fordham this year. I'll be leading a workshop, besides just kind of wandering around and doing dope things and just admiring and learning from the young people. Because remember, this has to be a two-way street. We learn from the young folk. They learn from us. We got to be in the right same place at the same time for that to happen. But I'll be actually doing a session on podcasting. Many of y'all know, I mean, I'm doing podcasting right now, and you're like, oh, this looks beautiful. It's like CNN, and it's nice, and I appreciate that. But I also do podcasting for a bunch of other people, including Newsbeat, which is a social justice-oriented podcast that mixes social justice journalism with hip-hop. So I've had my foot in the social justice, podcasting, hip-hop, you know, cauldron, mixing it all together. So that's one of the things that I do. I'll be leading a session on that because I think that podcasting, whether it's video or audio, the new form of journalism that's really able to help a lot of us folks who are hip-hop minded get our message out. In the same way hip-hop was kind of guerrilla messaging out to the world, and the podcast world is really good for that. So I'll be leading a session there. Fordham University, March 16th, my good friends at the Hip Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference. You should know about that. It is free. I put the link in the place where you put links, the comments. That's what I'm thinking of. And that's what's up. Also, May 3rd and 4th, my other friends, this is the 8th annual Can't Stop Hip Hop Conference happening at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. You might not think that Harvard got a bunch of hip hop. Harvard is chock full of hip hop happening up at Harvard. This has been happening for 8 years. I've been involved with this great conference. Again, not a stodgy, sticky, snobby, nose in the air, academic, you know, hello, we're in Harvard and we're talking about the hip hop that is for the children. No, they actually have performers. They have hip hop practitioners. If you're a hip hop artist or someone in that realm or field that you think, I want to be able to say, how can we use our music and culture in ways that can benefit young people, work in these other areas like education or mental health therapy or science and technology, all the things we talk about. These are the locations. These are the places you can hit up and be like, hey, like people, like it's not even a phone anymore. We still do this, right? It doesn't even shape like this anymore. You can be like, hey, like my trap phone. Hey, listen, I want to come into the spot. I want to be involved. How can I work with the young people? Can I mentor them? I'm an artist. I've been doing things. How can I get involved with this? Because it's a great mixture of hip hop on an elevated kind of level. So again, Harvard Graduate School of Education. This has been going on for a long time. You can get in touch with them as well. I'm going to put the thing in the thing, but just remember, you can use Google and you'll find all these places. That's happening May 3rd and 4th. The call for proposals and presentations is over, but you can jump on that if you would like. Hey, if you're watching on anything other than YouTube, please note that we prefer you to come over to YouTube. Don't tell the platform you're watching, just because I'm trying to get everyone to subscribe over there. So if you're on another platform, you're watching this somewhere else on a replay or whatever, come on over, hiphopcansaveamerica.com/watch. All right, and that'll bring you to YouTube. It's basically my YouTube channel, but that's where we like to be headquartered. Just wanted to throw that in there. The next thing I want to talk about real quick, if you're in New York City, now I'm academic heavy because I work with a lot of academics, but I also, even though I'm in Atlanta these days, I did the thing that New Yorkers do, and I moved to Atlanta. I want to talk about my good friend, Tony Blackman, who is long overdue to be on this show. But this is a great symposium that's happening in New York City, April 5th at Lincoln Center. All about women in hip-hop. It's called Fresh, Bold, and So Deaf. And I encourage people to go to this, especially if they're in the New York area, because when we have... Now I lost it. Dang it. Because when we have events like this that look into hip hop in a respectful way, with names like Tony Blackman and Martha Diaz, people who are in like kind of leaders in this again this idea that hip hop can help humanity, we want to support that, and especially when they're in institutions, traditional institutions, legacy institutions like Lincoln Center. So if you happen to be in New York City, April 5th, we'll have this on the calendar of events that appears in a lovely newsletter that I put out, which is for free, and you can get it, and it's called Words I Manifest. Please understand, I got to put this in manually because, I like to put all the things in. Oh, my God. Randy Swiggum, our guest for later, is already and said Tony Blackman is magic. Now, let me tell you something. When we mention names here, I'm not giving you nothing but like top quality, top tier people that do amazing things. Tony Blackman, when I say Tony Blackman like casually, and you don't know who Tony Blackman is, you need to know who Tony Blackman is when I say that this is a woman who's been an educator and an MC and a mentor and has done meditation work long before Little John, has been in ciphers, has written books, has worked with colleges and worked with students and worked with young people and worked internationally and have gone overseas, has done all the things, right? Rhyme like a girl. So this is like, I can't even tell you. We don't have enough time every night for me to tell you all the things that any one of these individuals do. So when I tell you about a thing, you should know that thing is worthy. So again, the best thing to do, because I'm rattling off information as I always do. I have a Substack. I'm typing it in now because I don't have an assistant yet. mannyfaces.substack.com. I frequently, semi-frequently, less frequently than I would like, but I send out a newsletter that has all of these things in it. So I'll be sending one out this week. So we'll be running down these events, other events like them. It's very important. Lastly, I will tell you about, where is it? The thing I'm going to be doing here in, oh man. I'll tell you about it manually. I don't have a screen for it. I don't have it up. I didn't have it up. I had everyone else's stuff. I'm like the shoemaker's son, got no shoes. In Atlanta, if you're going to be in Atlanta, I'll be part of a panel discussion that'll be happening at the Atlanta Metropolitan State College. It's next Tuesday. It'll be, 7 o'clock at night, and it's on the intersection of hip hop and social justice. And it'll be in Atlanta. It will not be streamed, so you got to be in person for this one. That's the problem. The one small problem with it. Run by Hip Hop Congress. It's going to have panelists like Samaya Ali, who's a great artist activist out here in Atlanta. Christopher Daniel, who's a great historian and journalist. Yamil Little, who does a great work on hip hop artistry and has a whole comic thing happening. Bame Joyner, who is kind of like the unofficial, creative mayor of Atlanta. This dude runs an organization called Atlanta Influences Everything. Really is like a cultural ambassador for Atlanta. And if you know Atlanta, like I've come to know Atlanta the last couple of years, we from New York, so it's like, every other city sucks. Come on, man, whatever. Y'all can't. I'm not gonna be happy in any other city in the world. I mean, what am I gonna do in St. Louis? What am I gonna do in Oklahoma? In whatever city is in Oklahoma? I don't even know what city is in Oklahoma. What am I doing in these cities? I'm from New York. But every city has its own charm and luster, and nothing against St. Louis. That's the first thing to pop in my mind. But when you come to Atlanta and you're from New York, you're like, oh, okay, they actually got some things like, they got enough culture, they got enough music, they got enough art, they got enough food, they got enough things. They got, it's kind of a, what they call a cosmopolitan city or whatever. And you're like, all right, this is okay. I could deal with Atlanta. But Bame Joyner is a big part of why that happens, because he's curating and boosting and building the creative, I don't want to say creative economy, I want to say like the creative ecosystem in Atlanta. So shouts to Bame Joyner and me, again, talking about the intersection of hip hop and social justice. So Atlanta Metropolitan State College, Tuesday the 27th, I'm going off memory. That'll be 7 o'clock at night, and it's going to be a great panel discussion. Thanks to the Hip Hop Congress, national organization, but the Atlanta chapter. And you can go to HHCATL on Instagram, HHCATL, Hip Hop Congress Atlanta, and get all the information. You go to my website, mannyfaces.com. And again, right there, still there, subscribe to the newsletter. And I'll give you all this stuff. Certainly by the end of this week, I will give you updates on all of these things. Stuff that I like to call hip-hop news that isn't about dumb shit. So, there you have it. What up, everybody? How y'all doing? You rocking with me? We still here? Thank you, Ada. Yep. I love when people help me out in the chats. You're the best. That's right. Atlanta Metropolitan State College, February 27th. It is a free event, but there's an RSVP. So check my bio on Instagram. You see my Instagrams up here. You'll find me. Some more love. Hey, Adam Cruz is in the chat. What up, Adam Cruz? Another wonderful hip-hop based educator. Tony Blackman equals 3 fires, which is it's true. 3 out of 3. There's only 3 fires. Once again, peace and love to our friends Chosen Hip Hop in the building. And let's see. Once again, Andrew Wang shouting out people. Andrew Wang mentioned she sent me some information today. There's a deaf poetry reunion happening. We'll show you. We'll send that in the newsletter as well. Shouts to D Cross. Shouts to Tony Blackman also in the Deaf Poetry Jam reunion happening in New York. So many things happening that I can't get to everything because that would be unfair to the people that I asked to come and be here and talk to y'all. Now, let's segue into that. First of all, put up my banner again. Yes, indeedy. We wrote graffiti on the bus. And thanks for checking in with us, man. This is Hip Hop Can Save America. It's your man, Manny Faces. And we're here every Monday live. I don't know how, but we are. Every Monday live, 9 p.m. I'm running. You can feel it in my voice, how frantic it is to do something like this. Let's bring it down a notch. Let's smooth it out. Let me turn down the lights. Hold on. Let me turn down the lights. Okay, there you go. Let's just take a breath. This is the book that I've admired for some time. This is the 3rd edition of That's the Joint, the Hip Hop Studies Reader. And I mentioned it, and I briefly mentioned. I didn't even have a chance to really broadcast this out to y'all who follow me and follow the show. I've been doing Hip Hop Can Save America as a podcast for many years. It was an audio version for many years, and then we've now done the video thing, and we're putting out video clips and doing all the things. And when I heard earlier this year that That's the Joint, the Hip Hop Studies Reader, I may have called it a Hip Hop Studies Reader, which is very bad, Manny. It's the for a reason. This is a book that's gone to hip hop college classes all across the country, perhaps throughout the world. And in this edition, in a section that highlights podcasts and newsletters, they included this podcast and that newsletter that I told y'all about. And that's, to me, a giant accomplishment. As someone that runs a small independent shop purposefully, I don't tie in with other organizations. I try to be independent. I try to let y'all, I didn't even tell y'all how to support the show. It's Patreon. You can figure it out. It's y'all that I answer to. And so that means a lot when somebody or something of that stature puts us in the spotlight because of the work that we do. And it is in no small part due to the gentleman
I came
here.
into the civic engagement table, Alabama Forward.
I don't know what's
and
happening.
It has been a complete blessing. We have made
That was going so good, wasn't it? I was really doing it. I was building up to that intro, and it was exciting. And now I don't know how to get rid of that video. So you're going to have to bear with me for a second.
I came into the civic engagement table, Alabama
Okay,
Forward.
I figured it out. There's a lot of buttons here happening. That putting this podcast, this maniac pod. See, now he's regretting this, I'm sure. Like, oh my God, what have I done? Why have we put this maniac in this book? He's out of control. He's crazy. It's Dr. Murray Forman, my friend, my man, my mellow. How are you, sir?
Peace. I'm doing great, man. Thanks, Manny, for having me on. Much respect and really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you, as you know. I appreciate that appreciation. I appreciate you putting up with this madness. We are, less than 2 months into doing it live every Monday with all the trials and tribulations that can happen. I still say it's the most enlightening hip-hop live stream in all the world. So it's good that it's working out. It's good that you're here, and I appreciate you for coming on. So, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Everything's level. Just keeping it moving, right?
Yeah, indeed. Well, that's what we got to do. Keep on plugging. I mentioned this book, and I know that you've done 1,000 things more than this book, right? So I don't want to keep it like this is the only thing you've done, and this is your grand opus. Although it's a hell of a. I tell people I can only read it like 2 or 3 times a week. I really can't get to it any more than that. I apologize.
You're slacking, man. You're slacking.
Cover to cover, like 2 or 3 times a week. But I got kids. Like there's a lot going on, man.
Get those kids reading it too, and gift it to your mom and whoever else.
Absolutely. Baby Girl Faces is about halfway through. She keeps getting distracted by YouTube. So what can I do? That being said, tell me and tell them why I hold this book in such high regard. And I know this is a little bit of you're gonna have to be self bigging yourself up, let's just say. But that's the joint's been around. This is now the 3rd edition, so it's been around for some time. It is an incredible compendium of essays and chapters written by some of the leading voices of hip hop, academia or studies. Tell me how this book came together, why it's so important, what's been in your involvement for, just the long and short of it, if you could.
Yeah, sure, man. I mean, 2 decades ago, and it sounds like a long time. Time moves fast. But Mark Anthony Neal and I, he's at Duke University, of course.
Yep.
Himself an amazing black culture scholar, not just hip hop. And in conversation, we wondered, what's out there? What could we use in our classrooms to bring hip hop knowledge? The so-called fifth element into the classroom, keeping it real to hip hop, and also keeping it rigorous for academia, right? And so we sort of, got together and sort of said, what would our wish list be? What would the greatest hits or mixtape be that we would want in our practice and bring into the classroom and to make available for other people? And so that's what we did. We pulled it together, and that was 2004 first edition.
Hold on 1 second. I may have muted you, brother. Hang on. I may have muted
My back
you.
here?
Yeah, I was trying to lift your volume up a little bit. I don't know if you have a way to speak a little bit closer. Just wanted to, bring that up. People were having a little trouble hearing you, and I was trying to boost you up, and then I muted you, which is just that's how things work around here.
You're not the first. But
they're always muting me, Manny.
But so and one of the things, I guess the 2 things that we're most proud of is that, we got out there first. There's been a lot of like guidebooks, companion books, other textbooks that have come out, and they're all really good, but there is something about being first and firstness with these things, and we got out a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of the academic formation of what we decided to call hip hop studies. We said, let's give it a name and let's formalize it, and let's make it more difficult for universities who would probably love to suppress this. But let's make it more difficult for them to do that by giving it all the kind of the structure and infrastructure that other areas of study have. And then the other thing is it's been really, really, really surprising, but also rewarding, is that over these 20 years, I've had students say this book really helped them in their graduate studies, helped them work through their academic issues, or gave them a toolkit, And I look at it as like a relay where, we kind of constructed something that resembles the baton, and we hand it off and let them run their damn race and carry it over the line, and that's been really rewarding.
Yeah. Let me ask. So, okay. I never know who's listening. I know we got some like friends and fans right now, of your work, of even, the stuff that we talk about here in the regular. And I feel like sometimes we preach to the choir. People know who you are and they know what you did, and we don't have to but also sometimes lay folk wander in and they might say, okay, how do you define hip hop studies then? Like, what is that? And obviously it seems like a simple thing if you don't really know, like if you're not familiar with the culture and but then if you are familiar with it, then it's a vast thing. So how is it like both of those things at the same time, and how do you kind of put it into a box, something that is really hard to put in a box?
Yeah, it's a good question, man, and it's been a bit of a dilemma, man, because when you think about, other kinds of academic disciplines or sub-disciplines and fields and that sort of thing, they often have like a formal methodology, and this is our history, this is our formation, these are our major approaches, this is the canon of esteemed works and authors. Hip hop didn't have any of that, and I'm not sure it does. And so that becomes a bit of a dilemma. It's like, how do we define this thing called hip hop studies without that kind of box of formal approaches? On the other hand, that might be one of its virtues, right? In the same way, hip hop, as soon as you start getting it too formalized and structured, you lose the groove, you lose the vibe, you lose the funk. And so what I've liked is the way we call it hip hop studies, but then other fields, other disciplines with their approaches, they bring their fire and their formal approaches to this thing called hip hop, and ideally they bring a hip-hop sensibility to the field. So they kind of open up the field in the same way that hip-hop gets opened up by whatever it is they're approaching it with.
Interesting. So offshoots, as you say. So it.
Yeah. Because it's been really useful and places fields like sociology and media studies and African American Africana studies. Those are kind of natural and easy ones. But then when it starts showing up like economics and business and finance and these other places that and sports and leisure studies and all these other places, it doesn't really, there's not a clear kind of box anymore, and
Right.
that to me is, I think, exciting, and I think it keeps it kind of in a hip hop sensibility. Keeps it kind of loose.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges for folks, maybe folks like y'all, in the like firmly footed in the academics, world. Folks like me that are kind of journalism, and I dabble, I touch my toe in the academic world. But the work is to, and we hate that we have to do this, but we have to kind of convince X group, Y group of the validity of hip hop as something worthy of being studied in the schools at a higher education, being worthy of incorporating into your, like you said, any field. My mantra has been any field of discipline across the board can benefit from having somebody with a hip hop sensibility, hip hop ethos involved in it, whether it's business, whether it's advertising, as we know, whether it's, like you say, sports and leisure, whether it's plumbing. I don't care. You want to advertise your plumbing business any better? Like, there's no better guerrilla marketing, folk than hip hop folk. Like we invented guerrilla marketing in a modern age. So
I think hip hop plumbing, we're going to keep you flowing.
There you go. You got a hashtag and everything. So that's what I'm saying. Like, come one time from her. Let me give you one of these because you get one of these. So the work is to convince people. Now, we hate that we have to do it. We know that we have to do it. There's this long, ongoing struggle of, do we need validation? Does hip hop need validation? Specifically, the black artists, the black musicians that, sort of like where that's come from, because it's like, we have our own thing, they say. The ivory towers don't want to accept it. Who cares? They never did. We went around the back door. We changed the music industry. But we also know that validation is important. It gives us resources. It gives us things to, tell me how y'all, dealt with sort of that struggle of, or continuously deal with that struggle of balancing that with the need for validation, but also F validation.
Well, when we came in, I think, I think you're nailing it, man, because, hip hop was not welcome. I mean, this is the same sort of continuum of people who at various stages said, studying comic books or studying television or studying popular music, and subcultures, it's like it doesn't belong in the higher education. So those same sort of orthodox and traditional and conservative voices were present around, the idea of hip hop. And we hit those barriers, we hit those walls. My line, and I say it in the introduction to the first edition, is like, we have to, reading, writing, and research is hip hop too. So let's first of all not make it like it's a separate thing, but we also have to remain rigorous. If we're going to fit into this thing called academia, people are already suspicious and already kind of skeptical and haters, then you better bring your best work. Make sure that it stands up to the academic thing. And I think that, in retrospect, but I hear to it today, that's important to the academia, but it's also to do justice to hip hop.
Right.
If you come in without the rigor in either case, you're falling short and you're doing disservice to both, right?
Right.
So, we ran into those barriers, but one of the interesting things that I hadn't foreseen it, is that as hip hop became more popular, became more mainstream, as hip hop studies became more established, that notion of validation or legitimacy started to fall away. And the other side of it is that we saw, academic colleges and administrators saying, "Oh shit, hip hop puts butts in seats." In other words, this has a kind of an academic chic. It's kind of cool.
Right.
And if butts and seats, can be translated into money and, in the university accounts, then we want to offer hip hop courses. And so then we get into that, culture vulture appropriation model, right? And they'll say, like, you got people who are, not to diss anybody necessarily, but, in English departments who really aren't into hip hop, but they want to use hip hop lyrics to try and teach Shakespeare or something.
Right.
But they got no commitment to the culture. They got no commitment to the history and to the formation and what it means to be stepping in and trying to do this as hip hop, right? And so that, that's we wanted something, we wished for it, we got a little bit of it, and then we said, oh shit, we hadn't seen this side.
Right. Right. So the college, like you said, they want to get butts and seats. So they say, hey, you teach the hip hop class, right? And they're not reaching outside of necessarily the walls and finding maybe someone who might be more qualified as part of the culture, a teacher practitioner kind of deal. But it's like, and so now I think some of the work, I know some of the work has been to also say to, the academic side, like, hey, you have to maybe sometimes look outside of just the traditional. I've talked about this. I don't have a degree. I'm the son of a college professor, distinguished professor of sociology, brilliant guy, one of the best college professors that ever walked the earth. And of course I didn't go to college. Why would I? That's a shoemaker's son has no shoes, right? So I said, but because I'm a practitioner, I'm a student, I'm an independent scholar of the culture, I'm just speaking personally, I feel like I'm no less qualified to teach, a hip hop course in any college. But I couldn't get past the AI, whatever the thing that reads the resumes and the CVs as it gets through because I don't have an a true degree. But forget me. I'm talking about, people have been practitioners for 40 years that have all of that background and knowledge and experience that are infinitely better to teach this in maybe they could use a little instruction on instructing, right? Teach the teacher how to teach, but they're super qualified. And that's what we need more from our educational institutions is to realize that they need to do more of that. I think we're seeing more of that these days. But I think that's part of the work too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, let's think about it. It's like, hip hop identified cats who are working in the elements, whatever their art form might be. What are they experts at? And one thing is moving the fucking crowd, right? And bringing the vibe and generating that energy, right? And a kind of, a shared affect.
Right.
And so, the classroom actually misses something if you don't bring that and make that part of the curriculum. So, I'm thinking about my collaborator and colleague and friend, Mark Anthony Neal, who built a course at Duke University with Ninth Wonder. Right. Sure. And looking at soul music and sampling and, these sort of things. And up here in, I'm at Northeastern, by the way, not in Northwestern. I'm up in Boston.
Did I say Northwestern?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Also,
same thing.
Also a great university.
Of course.
But up here, like I've tried. I've been Harry Allen, Martha Diaz, F. Poe, Akua Naru, Ed O.G., local hero. He comes in every year, and then just over at UMass Boston, local hero acrobatic teaches a course, right? And so a lot, and down in South Carolina, Jabari Evans, who used to be in Kids in the Hall, MC Knowledge, all these cats are getting their degrees as well. And so, what used to be this kind of town and gown separation isn't nearly as rigid as it used to be. And this is, I think it's a great thing for hip hop. It's absolutely a great thing for hip hop studies, like, people like me who don't have any necessarily skills in the elements. I tried them all, but writing, writing is, like I say, research is also can be hip hop if you bring the cultural sensibility.
Right.
And so, we're finding people now from all those different dimensions, some of them coming into their, what I call second acts, as they get a little older and they realize, I sort of peaked or whatever. My hip hop career is it's not going to make money for the family, but I can teach, adjunct. I can teach courses, and I can keep it just as hip hop in the classroom as I do out anywhere else.
Yeah. The more of that, the better. I mean, obviously that's the type of folks I talk to here. Master Ace comes to mind, who obviously still makes music, still makes albums, but has written a play, and he's developing a play with the Rhymes Over Beats folk in New York, and they're what do you call it? When you try out a play, you try it out, you develop it, whatever. He's been running that for a little while, and we see, and you just mentioned a bunch of other names that, I've caught a little flack for this when I said that hip hop, in a way, part of the pushback that the culture gets from its fans and participants who have grown up with it, and we see how like the music goes in a direction that we may not necessarily appreciate or enjoy. And I often say, like, look, hip hop is so much more than the music, which we all know, but it's desperately trying to outgrow just being the music. Like we trap it sometimes by not saying, look at all the great stuff that our artists can do that isn't being, music on the radio or on Vivo or on, and we hold it back a little bit by not understanding how much that is and can happen. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And, and I also think, I mean, I one of the work I'm doing right now is on, frankly, it's on growing old in the game, or
right.
age and aging in hip hop.
Right.
and I'm writing a lot about the pioneers, the longtime veterans, and that sort of thing. And one of the things that really is, to their benefit, but it's to everybody's benefit, really, is that they've been around long, right? And they're beyond reproach in terms of their hip hop bona fides. Like they did the work, they created the thing, they brought it, but they've been around so long that they're really comfortable in front of all kinds of audiences.
Right.
They're invited to conferences, to lectures, to public talks all the time. And so these guys get in front of an educational context, and they know exactly what to do.
Right.
And so there's this is one of the things I'm really encouraged by, is that with enough experience, these guys they become like the carriers of the culture, and they may as well just come into the classroom. So I think it's incumbent on us in the university to make sure that we keep those doors open, invite them to guest lectures, invite them to talks, just make sure that whatever that old traditional town and gown, purist and tourist kind of division is eroded. Break that down and make sure that they feel as comfortable in the classroom as any place else.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, older folks that are outside that are part of the culture lament that the young folk don't respect the elders or don't have any comprehension of the elements. Well, if we don't have places to deliver that to them, and again, they are in college, they are going to school. That's a great place to be able to reinforce and pass on those traditions, and in a way that isn't always super authoritative, right? It's because I know that hip hop classes and hip hop instructors are much more sensitive to the restrictions of a traditional education system that don't value the cultural, language of their students, and they sit in ciphers. We know where you're coming from. We're happy to talk about these things. So it makes it a welcoming learning experience for young folk. And then you bring in the OGs to come connect those dots and build those bridges. It's set up perfectly for it.
Yeah, and one of the things, I'm kind of guilty as charged. It's like with age, it's harder to keep up on what's going on.
Right.
I know there was a period where we all had like the source. We had all kinds of media feeds and stuff. We kind of were on top of what was going on. You knew when something new was happening. You knew who was hot, who was falling off. All of these things. We all kind of knew it. I felt like that was part of the hip hop nation. We were connected to something.
Right.
Well, it's not like that anymore. And so I think one of the first things I do is I tell my students, I can work with you, and I can bring the history, and I can try and bring in some of these people. And if I can't get them in on a Zoom, I interviewed Chuck or Kaz or Theodore or something.
Right.
I'll play a clip from the interview tape, so they hear it in their voices, right? But then there's a point where I say, I got to give it to you guys now. I got to defer and say, I can't. I've given you the framework for the formation of the culture. Now, how do you guys want to discuss what you're listening to and what you see as the culture, and how do you want to explain it in a way that we're saying, okay, well, this is what hip hop is now.
Right. As we've talked about offline, to me that's super important, because we can't define, again, I said it earlier today, we can't continuously define, as older folk, as older hip hop heads, as older academics, we can't define something that's not definable, that's supposed to evolve, that has always evolved and had offshoots and branches that we were aware of and could kind of, but you want to talk about what you don't like today, New Yorkers didn't recognize down South hip hop as being important in our time, so that
the South got something to say.
Yeah, and the South then had something to say about it. So we've always had those distinctions. So it is super important, as you say, to continuously, it's got to be a two-way street. We've got to learn from the young folk as well as give them the opportunity, to learn from us as well.
And I'm going to, this is a little self-promotion, but it works within the conversation. That,
yes.
This is...
You mean this?
That's the one, bro.
I was going to segue too, but feel free to just segue away.
Well, when we're talking about this, and the history, and I can explain, I can be anecdotal, I can bring in these older cats who are also going to often be anecdotal and that sort of thing. But the material artifacts, the physical objects, documents, all of that sort of thing, the historical record is now thankfully being placed into archives, and it's at their best, they're community accessible and responsive. And I think this is the other things now is trying to work it into curriculum, that you get the students now, to do this project, you need to access the archive.
Right.
And it's, often they're if they're good ones, they have the funding and stuff, they're digitized. So
Right.
go in and do something on Joe Conzo's photographs, or
Right.
on the tapes of radio programs from Toronto from the early 1990s or whatever it might be.
Right. Right. Tell me about the segue to that was, okay, we talk about writing, and we're talking about classes and instruction. The archives was the thing I was definitely going to segue into, and you did nicely with the book Hip Hop Archives. Of course, we know a lot of folks that are doing hip hop archival work. It's still a burgeoning, but it's a blossoming field. The importance of that. What are some of the things that in writing the book or just in your travels you've seen as sort of I want to say like prime examples of hip hop archiving? Who's done it right? Who's doing it right? What needs to still be done? Obviously, we've talked on this show a long while ago to Ben Ortiz, and I've talked, of course, with Martha Diaz, Summer McCoy, who runs the Mixtape Museum and is working on some of these initiatives. But overall, like, what have you seen, generally speaking, that I think we don't have to. I hope we don't have to the audience who's watching this show, explain why archiving, these cultural artifacts is important, but who's doing it right? What's the right way to do it? And what, in your opinion, as someone who studied it and written a book about it, needs to be done still?
Well, first of all, the three names that you just mentioned are the best in the biz,
Yep.
and there's others at that level, but those three are just amazing.
Right.
Quick answer to the where I think it's being done well. My first one would probably be Cornell. The Cornell collection. Those guys really have they've got some of the top names, the key names. They've really put their resources behind it in terms of proper collection, preservation, cataloging, and then the digitization.
Right.
Making it community and globally accessible. So I think that's the gold standard. And in fact, just yesterday I got a message from some folks got research funding in Utrecht, Netherlands, and they're coming over to the U.S. to look at hip hop archives and stuff. And I said, hit Ithaca, go to Cornell,
Right.
thing, and talk to Ben and Catherine.
Right. Catherine Regan. Right. Yeah.
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 But one of the things about the book that I really enjoyed is that we saw people at the level of collection and not quite not what we call an archive, stuff
Right.
that's in the closet, it's in the basement, it's in the attic,
Right.
it's in the garage.
Right.
Not particularly well preserved, but they understand the hip hop value of it, just not quite sure what to do with it.
Right.
But the way I'm thinking about former Soviet Germany, the GDR, and these b-boys who get online and or occasionally get together and they just bring together their artifacts for reminiscence and recollection, like a reunion, and they aren't sure what quite to do with it, where to commit it in terms of an archival acquisition process or something.
Right.
But they're absolutely aware of the value of it. And so that process of how does something go from what they call an unofficial, informal collection into something that's formally archival, and that transition from objects and just stuff I have from
Right.
and how does it get translated into, now we call it an artifact, and now it goes into a whole other system of preservation.
Right.
And then the kind of collision. Sometimes it's it's collaborative, but it's also got a collision and antagonistic aspect. Hip hop cats who, they aren't really coming at things with an institutional, formal, archival or library type of sensibility. And then the library folks say, like, we don't really know hip hop. We don't really understand what's going on. Why are these people fighting about whose name will be on the top of the bill? It's like, but that's hip hop, But so there's a mutual educational and informational kind of socialization and conditioning that has to go on. We're seeing that everywhere we look, but it's what we hoped for, and I think I hope we achieve with the book, is that there will be this kind of collective learning, that archivists will understand hip hop and what it means to collect and preserve hip hop material, as hip hop heads sort of understand that there are these infrastructural and institutional things that also you need to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, definitely a two-way kind of mutual learning from the legacy institutions and the folks who could connect with them. But this is all part of the educational stuff. Go ahead.
Do you see Andrew Wang's comment? How do I feel this?
I was just about to call that up. What do you and me, man? We're like, what's going on here? Go ahead.
Yeah, Andrew, thanks for that question, man. I think they did a pretty damn good job. When we talk about an institution with with resources, they have it, right? And I think in terms of their African American history and Africana kind of emphasis, they understand a lot of the cultural sensitivities and what needs to be done, what's been done wrong in the past institutionally.
Right.
And they've got some really committed folks on the ground in there. I'm thinking about Timothy Ann, forgetting her last name, God.
Yeah, I know Timothy Ann. That's all I can think of as well. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah,
but she's
done a great job. Yeah,
she's been great up in there, and fostering relationships way before you get to the idea of can we have your stuff and put it on display or whatever, right? With Jay Dilla's mom and meeting people like Bambata and kind of massaging. I'm not going to say the egos, but massaging kind of the reputations of these cats who sort of say we're kind of great in the culture. Are we going to be recognized as great in your institution? It's not just about being great, but they want this to be really important within the larger institution. Right. And I think the Smithsonian understands that.
It's assuaging those fears, I think, like you talked about. It's, saying, hey, we don't know you. Yeah. We don't know you, institution. We don't know, we might even know the Universal Hip Hop Museum, but knowing that there were 3 other hip hop museums or Hall of Fames that came and went, who might have reached out to me also, and they're gone, and we don't know you. We don't know what this is about. And I think that it's a super, like you said, relationships is the most important starting block.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is that when you get into the larger institutions, damn, we've been burned before, man.
That's right.
We don't have to dig too deep to see all the kind of wrongs that have been done and all the ripoffs that have gone on. And that's where I think this idea, like somebody like Martha Diaz is absolutely crucial and key. And Ben at Cornell and lots of people, certainly as you get into the smaller, more localized places, the people do have a lot more kind of involvement in the local culture, so it's not quite the same thing. But the large institutions like Ivy League universities or Smithsonian scale things, it's making sure that you have people who are community responsive and plugged in, and that they give the resource to those people to go and spend time in the community and hang out and get a sense of what's going on and what the values are and what it might mean to bring something from hip hop from the local scene or the wider scene into a place like this.
Yeah.
My collaborator and brother Mark Campbell in Toronto, he tries as much as possible. First of all, he doesn't have the space or his own resources for it to keep material artifacts. So what he does is he scans and copies and photographs and everything he can, and lets the artifacts remain in the hands of the folks who bring them to him. Right. So he says, I'm not taking anything.
Right.
What I'm doing.
Wait, I thought that's what we do. We're supposed to steal the artifacts from the people and put them in the museums, and isn't that how it works? I don't know. That's
far too often. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is how it works. And
you're flipping this whole idea on its head. Yeah.
But this is the thing is we talk about the decolonial archive, right?
Yep.
It's like we are not going to play that fucking game again. And if anything, hip hop has always been kind of standing firm against that sort of thing. So this is another opportunity to define hip hop according to the culture's own terms,
Yeah.
Just in a new environmental setting called the archive.
That's right. That's brilliant. Yep, indeed. So, okay, we're coming up on time. Murray, I could talk to you for days on end. I really appreciate you taking the time. Long overdue, but I said I wanted to make it look pretty first. Come on, look how good looking we are. We can't just waste it on the audio format. What are we doing? We have jewelry. We got hair. What the hell? We got to show it off. So I do appreciate you coming through and hanging out with me for this. Those are those 2 books. Again, we could talk about them for, ad nauseum. What else do you have under your belt that you want folks to know about? What might you be working on that you want to share with the folks that I haven't had a chance to bring up myself tonight?
Yeah, as I've been working on these, in a way, my core project, it's called Old in the Game, Time, Age, and Aging in Hip Hop. And I'm getting old in the game just working on it. It's been hanging around for way too long. But in a way, just because as the culture ages, more and more kind of information, data, research comes out, and I'm kind of reluctant to let it go. But I'm working on that. I've got that proposal out right now with a university press. I'm hoping that will see the light of day maybe within the next year. And if it doesn't, I'll just keep trying. That's my major kind of project right now, is about, and it goes along with with the archive thing. Like older folks who have these materials who are suddenly thinking, what do I do? Looking at mortality and saying, what do I do with these materials that might be of value to the culture when I'm gone?
Yeah, I'm
looking at these issues. And other than that, Chuck D told me one time at a certain point in his career and his age, he said, I'm in service to hip hop.
Right.
And that's kind of all he is, and I think he's proven that over and over and over. I'm not Chuck D by any stretch, but I take that message to heart, and it's what I try to do, is to be in service, to help younger folks, and to bring information, knowledge, to build the culture, And so with that, y'all can find me at Northeastern University, m.forman at northeastern.edu. And if anybody wants to reach out for any reason, I reply.
Yeah, you definitely do. I think that is super valuable, what you're working on, as sort of the, I don't know, being older and having this show and trying to not just, interview the folks doing the work, but, impress upon an aging hip hop oriented population. What can we do to help? Right? We don't know what to do. We don't know the music. We don't sit with our cassette tapes. We don't burn the CDs. We don't, ride around with some of us still ride around with our cars in the booming systems. I'll tell you that much. That's never going to stop. You know what I mean? But, what can we do? And I think that we think that because we're not always attached to the music, to the way we were, that we don't have agency anymore. And I think that frustrates us, that gives us, a bad feeling, because it's so much part of our lives. But when you talk about what can we do, well, first of all, what are you doing for a living? Because you can probably incorporate hip hop into your line of work somehow. To think that if you work at a school or a library or any kind of legacy institution, this whole conversation was about what you could bring to the administrators or what you could bring to the table. If you not only that, if you have children, if you're able to, work with them, get a better relationship with your children. We've talked about this with a bunch of folks. Hip hop is the conduit, the never ending conduit, that you can find common ground with your children and have a better relationship with them. And we've given examples on this show so often. And I will say that by doing that, by having this, kind of mindset, it helps someone like me do what I can do. This is the skill set that I have. And I'm not rapping and DJing. Well, I'm still DJing every now and then, but I'm not rapping. I'm not making beats. I'm not making remixes. I'm not trying to be the artist anymore. But I still have this, and I do podcasts where we incorporate music into it. And I'm so satisfied that I can still use my hip hop to make something valuable in the world, and not be daunted by the fact that I don't know who half of the artists are anymore. But also find out who the artists are. Pay attention. I turned on the TV and I watched Vivo videos, and I'm like, I don't like this song. I don't like this song. And then I'm like, oh, I actually like this song. And I don't know who this person, like that discovery, we can still do it. We can still have a Spotify playlist that gives us something new. And
Rap caviar, man. It's like I'm hitting the treadmill. My old ass is hitting the treadmill in the gym. We're listening to Rap Caviar. It's like you. I don't know who I'm listening to, but it's it's bumping. Keep
right.
It,
If I like it, I like it. And then now my algorithm says, oh, you like this kind of, and now I got JID flipping on or somebody like that, where I can say, okay, I can mess with this kind of deal. So I think that is really, I guess you're kind of, as you've done so many times in your career, like really putting a nice bow on some of the things we're trying to say and do when it comes to the culture. Teach people about it in a serious manner, or in this case, teach older folks how we can continue to contribute to the culture and build it, not necessarily in the closed-minded way that I think some of us think we have to, like shut it down, ban this, censor that. It's like, yeah, I mean, we can have those conversations, and they're important because we can talk about the destructive nature of the music and the lyrics and the corporate control, and those conversations have to be had, and we have them. Although we have the debates all the time, but it can't stop there. It has to say, okay, what can we also do? Which is the kind of stuff that you're talking about. I think that's super valuable.
Yeah, man. hip hop has opened up so many conversations like outside of hip hop, right? You know,
Right.
how we talk about gender, how we talk about class, how we talk about race, right? Those conversations aren't about hip hop, but hip hop has opened the door onto new ways of discussing them in really important and essential ways. And that way back in the day, like going back 40 years or 45 years, that was kind of what drew me into the culture in the first place.
Right. And there's ain't nothing like it, man. Ain't nothing like hip hop, man. Yeah. And I really appreciate it. I'm going to let you go. I just want to say for the record one time, if anyone watching, hearing, listening, smelling, tasting, feeling me, likes what I'm doing, appreciates what I'm doing, it is in no small part to this man right here. You've reached out to me when I was writing for Birthplace magazine, a small, I don't say small, but pretty small, New York-based online publication that I started. I met you somewhere, and I knew who you were, and you knew who I was. And you're like, I read this piece about the classic radio, da-da-da. And you pulled out one of these pieces that I wrote with all of my heart and soul and brilliance, because I thought it was brilliant, and you told me about it. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, the guy who, put together this is paying attention to what I do. And it meant a great deal to me as just some guy just, how we say, thinking he's pissing into the ocean to warm it up. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm yelling into the wind or, anyone's paying attention. And you were one of the, great names and great folk doing this work that did let me know that. And that's so I kept going in part because of that. So thank you.
Keep yelling, bro.
Yeah, man. Murray, thank you so much. We'll talk again soon, my friend.
All right. Thanks so much, Manny. Peace, y'all. And folks who dropped in, respect. Thank you.
Yeah, word up. You got a lot of fans in here. Watch the playback. Okay, I didn't want to mess us up by playing all the comments, but they're out there. You already know. All right, my man. Be safe. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, brother.
All right. Peace. There it is. One time, I'll do one of these for my man right there. There we go. Murray Forman, the great Dr. Murray Forman. Again, author, educator, cool cat. And does all the things. So once again, you can check out Murray Forman at Northeastern University. Northeastern. I knew that, of course. Jeez, God, it's really hard doing these shows. So listen, we're gonna take a quick break. Not really a break, but I want to say, listen, we've been talking nonstop. I don't know if you're sitting at your computer. Why don't we take a quick 2-minute break? I'm gonna resituate myself. I'm going to switch from coffee to a adult beverage because it's getting late. And then we're going to have our great guest next. This is a great opportunity to talk about something that's happening this Saturday that is super dope. It's a continuation of the conversation we just had. It is about the conference that I told you about, the music educator and pedagogy conference. It's happening. It's virtual. I'm a part of it. It's honoring the legacy of the late great Jarritt Shield. You want to know about it, just don't go anywhere. I'm going to play the bathroom break. Everyone loves the bathroom break, and then we're going to come right back. You watch the bathroom break, and we're coming back. This Hip Hop Can Save America. It's your man, Manny Faces, rocking with you. Let's go.
Running back to you.
There it is. One time for your mind. The bathroom break. The world famous bathroom break on Hip Hop Can Save America. I did that myself, y'all. I'm very proud of it. I hope you are too. Whew. Catch my breath running around. Shouts again to Chosen Hip Hop. Great conversation. Keep up that great work. Thanks again to Dr. Murray Forman, again, the editor, one of the editors behind That's the Joint, the Hip Hop Studies reader. Again, he mentioned Mark Anthony Neal, who helped edit the 3rd edition, and the great Dr. Regina Bradley, who is down here in the Georgia area, in the Atlanta area with me. Thanks again, Miss Thursday. Miss Thursday has a great podcast. It's called Beats Per Minute. And I was on the finale of last season. And she's back. It's back. Yay. Say it, kids. So you can definitely check out her great Beats Per Minute podcast. Ada, drop that link in the chat. Let people know where you rock. I caught some of it the other day. Again, Atlanta heavy, talking to an Atlanta OG out here in the music business. So I appreciated that. I appreciate you. That being said, let's keep it moving and grooving. As I promised, today we would talk about hip hop and education and archiving and music education. And I showed you earlier, if you caught me earlier, let's go. Where is it? There it is. The 4th annual Hip Hop Pedagogy Virtual Music Educator Workshop. That was a mouthful. Let me take a sip of this beverage. It's happening this Saturday, February 24th. And this is super important. This is an all-day music educator focus. But like I say, all the things we talk about here definitely have value for teaching artists, all kind of artists, and folks who are who have hip hop music and culture near and dear to their heart. We're going to talk about what's happening on this wonderful platform with my friend. Now he's my friend because now I know him. His name is Randy Swiggum, and he's here with us right now. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, good to be with you.
Oh, what a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for working us out and finding time to rock with us on Hip Hop Can Save America. How are you tonight?
I'm good. I thought I was going to be sick around 6 o'clock, and I thought this is a great night to get sick. I feel great now. I think Murray Forman and then your bathroom break video kind of revived me.
Everyone loves the bathroom break video, man. It's the best. One of the best things I've ever done.
You couldn't do that when you were just an audio podcast.
No, there's so many things we have here now. Well, I appreciate the appreciation, and Murray Forman is certainly an inspiration. As I mentioned at the end, I couldn't even get into the depth of how we crossed paths and how influential it's been. So I'm glad we revived you. Let's get you going before you maybe backslide into any kind of tired. Well, you're not. You're an hour. What time is it? You're an hour back. It's still early. You'll be fine.
It's only 9 o'clock here.
Tell me about what we're doing this Saturday. This is, and first of all, an honor to be, for you to reach out and have me involved in this. As I mentioned early in the show, anyone who's watching this workshop honors the legacy of Jarritt Shield, who was a guest on this podcast some time ago. We'll talk about Jarritt, his work, and his legacy as well. Tell folks, just give real quick the log line of what this virtual music educator workshop is about this Saturday, February 24th.
Well, a couple quick things to start. I'm really glad that Adam Cruz is on this podcast tonight. I was so happy to see him on there because really it was really Adam who helped me get this going because, University of Illinois, where Adam is at, has a strong hip hop education program and really geared toward music education in particular. Adam's a music educator. And I reached out to him. I can tell you if you're interested, like where the idea for this workshop in Madison came from, but it was Adam that I reached out to, and he right away said, I'm happy to help. He said, he's a very generous guy.
Very nice.
And he said, you should talk to Jarritt Shield. And so he hooked us up, and I remember I called Jarritt. I was walking the dog. He was walking the dog. We just clicked instantly, and I understood why Adam thought I should talk to him. And that's a little bit why we lost Jarritt last year, but that's why this workshop is really important to us. A lot of people are very interested because of Jarrett's influence on them and his memory. But Jarritt really, along with Adam and lots of others, Tony Blackman, you've named a bunch of them, Tasha Iglesias, people who have really been generous with this workshop and I think helped it to rise to something really challenging. What happened, though, it was my first year in this job with the Madison School District, I realized that we have a lot of really great music teachers in Madison. Madison is an arts-rich city. We've got UW,
Yep.
University of Wisconsin Madison with its own hip hop
That's
first
right.
wave program.
First waves, yeah, that's right.
Kind of I think the first one in the nation, right? Like full tuition scholarship for hip hop arts. But I mean, it's like something you've said like a billion times. Music teachers, they're not really trained in hip hop, not the pedagogy, not the music, really nothing about it. And unless you're a teacher who already loves hip hop, like Andrew Wang, or values it, right? There's a very good chance that your students could never experience any aspect of hip hop in their full K-12 music education, which is a little weird, right? You sort of assume like music teachers would be the first to jump on, but they don't. And that's been I re-listened to your interview with Jarritt, and that's something that you guys talked about is like, why don't music teachers use hip hop music more? And I have my own thoughts about that. I've really been thinking about this for a long time, like why it hasn't really taken off. But there's a lot of things I love about music, broadly speaking, that have not taken off in music education.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so Adam and Jarritt and I had a little team of friends here in Madison and in Chicago. We put together that first workshop, and when it happened, summer of 2020, that really dark summer, when everything was bad that summer, and George Floyd, and I mean the whole thing. We had riots in Madison, and it was really, really dark, and so people were really drawn to it. We had like over 100 people online from all over the world that came, and we decided to keep it going. So, but really the idea of this workshop, we're not the only ones doing this, but this workshop's really, really geared toward music teachers. And by music teachers, I don't mean like the person that has a digital music lab at their school and is teaching beat making and all the ins and outs of electronic music, because those people generally, they have found their path. I'm talking about like the 6th grade band teacher,
right?
Or the elementary school general music teacher. I mean, which we have one in every single school in Wisconsin,
right?
Teaching elementary general music, but they may not know like how could I use hip hop music or make it the focus of the study, which are two different things, of course.
Yeah. So I guess obviously that was the crux of what I spoke to Jarritt about, and started thinking about more from that, leading up to that conversation, and ever since. I have a plethora of children that range in decades to 9 years old, so 30 somethings all the way down to 9, and looking back over the years, in not necessarily rural out there places, I don't remember a lot of hip hop being incorporated into the music curriculum. My daughter now is in a chorus. She does choir or chorus. I guess it's chorus. Yeah, right. Choir would be more like church. I don't know the terminologies.
You say both, yeah.
Yeah. So she's in a chorus, and they did a Christmas thing, and they're singing songs, and I'm like, what? I'm sure these kids would be a hell of a lot more engaged if you were to throw in some, just like the marching bands do, just like you see it the orchestras now when you have Jeezy performing with an entire orchestra, going back to when Nas did it at the Kennedy Center, and these integrations of music just would be more exciting, more inviting to me as a kid, to my kids, I'm sure, but it doesn't happen a lot, and I guess that's part of the work, is to delve into that and change that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying to a point, but I have to say I think it goes further than that, because I don't think the reason we do a certain kind of music is because that's what's going to hook the kids.
Okay,
right?
fair. Yep.
That's not why we teach math.
Right.
It's I often say it's like we don't look at certain kids and say, you will probably never live in the rainforest, so we're just going to skip that unit. Like the whole purpose of an education is to enlarge your understanding of something, and so I don't see the importance of hip hop for kids that already love hip hop. They don't really need it, right? Because their love affair with hip hop is well underway, and it will continue. I see it. The importance of hip hop music education for me is for the kids that don't see themselves in it, and that's sometimes students of color, a lot of white students, of course, and all the kids in between.
Right.
I think hip hop is worth studying just for its own sake, and not because there are some kids out there for whom that they would really connect with it. Now, all that said, that is still a really good reason to do it, right? Because
Right.
some people, they don't see themselves in school,
Right.
and this is a way for them to see themselves in school.
Right. I guess that's yes, and I really appreciate that perspective. And I would say that sure, we don't want to, kind of do it in a tokening, kind of token way, but to say that representation, matters. That we can see when kids are young and they can say that I could be hip hop, I could do hip hop with instruments, I could do hip hop. That stuff you don't see that very often when you're a young. Or again, to say, well, DJing. I'm a DJ. I've always gone by the mantra that, we're using the turntable as an instrument. These are just things that you're not going to see in your everyday music class. So you don't have the validation as a young person. You don't have the representation. You don't have that connection as well. So I guess both of those things need to be uplifted more.
Yeah. And I mean, Murray talked about this, like the way hip hop has sort of expanded to it, and your podcast has shown this, like it includes like literally everything, politics,
everything,
spirituality,
yes.
Social justice. I mean, there's hardly an aspect of human existence that has not been touched by hip hop, and that makes it a lens, and especially hip hop music, it makes it a lens to understand the world, like chemistry as a lens, or physics as a lens, or English literature, or anything. These are all lenses by which we understand how the world works, and hip hop just happens to be a really dynamic, and powerful, and there's a lot of cultural heft and energy and muscle in hip hop that can be leveraged for, like understanding what's going on in the world. And frankly, like I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, so my growing up experience is very far removed from the roots of hip hop and kind of the energy that birthed hip hop. That's why it needs to be. That's why I need to study it, right?
Right.
Like if I'm going to understand this
Sure.
world that I live in,
Right.
I gotta find a lens that will help me understand it. That's so different from my own lived experience. And yet I find, that there's, and this is the thing that we try to do and show teachers how to do it, like help kids who are not growing up in a gritty urban setting,
right,
to see themselves in hip hop. Like there's still
the parallels or
exactly. Yeah. Everybody knows that feeling of being on the outside. Everybody knows that feeling of, it's, the list goes on, every human emotion has been explored in hip hop. And that's something that a good music educator will help kids see, is not like, oh, do you like this song? That's not the point. Do you see yourself in this song? And can you connect with it in that way?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Before we get into what's happening specifically, a couple just other quick questions. I guess because you've done it in these workshops, what have you seen, or what are the, examples, anecdotally, I guess, of when you've had a music educator come in open-minded but not really hip to the game yet, and they've taken part in the workshop, and then you've gotten some feedback afterwards that has shown that a light bulb kind of went off, or what is the hope? Maybe something that happened already, or what is the hope when you do these workshops and you get folks who are coming in that are, like you say, a little bit green to the ideas but open-minded enough to accept the possibilities, and then come in, and then what do they get out of it?
Well, that's an easy question, actually, because to be honest with you, when we started this, I was hoping to get like 12 people to show up.
Right.
And I really just wanted to start a cohort of teachers in my school district. We've got maybe, 75 music teachers in our district. And I wanted to get like 10 or 12 interested in just starting like a collective, basically.
Right.
And we have a couple really amazing hip hop educators in our district. And they were kind of my partners in making this all happen. They had some connections. They kind of knew like what teachers who were not invested in hip hop needed to do. So we sort of built this like, and I'm just going to say it, and Adam, you should jump in on this because you really sort of guided me. Like, what is the average, I'm just going to say it, white teacher, who doesn't feel like they're part of the culture?
Right.
Where do they find themselves in hip hop culture? It's a huge issue, right? The positionality of white teachers. I mean, Andrew's already mentioned
I was going to say, Andrew Wang mentioned it earlier tonight. Yeah. In the chat.
It's a huge obstacle. And I think, Adam's right. Like there are historical reasons, and there's white supremacy involved. There's all kinds of like racist undercurrents that make this happen. But a lot of it, to be fair, is teachers that they would do better. They just don't know how to get into it, right? So that first workshop had a lot of talk about like, what do you where do you get started as a white teacher
Right.
with all white students, or what's even harder, a mix of white students and students of color? That's
Sure.
a much harder gig. And that, Adam talked about it. Miles Comiskey from Chicago talked about it. That for a lot of people, it was sort of freeing, because that summer, especially, there was just so much canceling and anger, and sort of like, and like middle-aged white men like me were trying to practice like being quiet and listening, right?
Sure.
But also knowing how to like make something happen that would be good, and that it would advance this conversation. So one quick example. On Saturday, one of the teachers that's going to be presenting, Kristen Flock, she was an orchestra teacher, middle school orchestra teacher, white, who came to the workshop and decided, I want to do something with my middle school orchestra kids. Now think about the level of playing of middle school orchestra, middle school strings players, and how far removed as a genre, as a space in music education from hip hop. It seems like that's about as far apart as you can get, right? Okay. And she built a project that she does with her kids every year, where they create a hip hop piece in the orchestra, spoken word, and they're playing their instruments, and it's really cool. So I said, would you like walk teachers through, like step by step by step? What's the first thing you do with the kids? Like the first day, how do you get them excited about it? How do you get them to write? That's another thing. Like, most music teachers have not learned how to get kids to write lyrics or any kind of spoken word art. And that's its own thing, right? It's not part of training. Right. Even vocal teachers, choir teachers, they don't necessarily have that in their bag of tricks. So like Saturday, she's going to actually teach it, but she got the idea from coming to this workshop. So that's just one little example. We've had a lot of elementary teachers that came and nobody knew what a cipher was, right? Like that. And then they discover, like, okay, working in a circle, that's something we elementary teachers do all the time. Put the kids in a circle and leverage the power of the cipher, basically. You know?
Right.
So they see themselves in that, and it's like, okay, now I can take this all to the next level. So here's another great example. Orchestra teacher, high school orchestra in our district, did a whole thing with his kids, his high school orchestra kids, on Afrofuturism and creating a hip hop alter ego, which is that's a whole thing. And then
sure, my name's not Manny Faces. My government name is Bobby Elbows. It's fine. I'm just kidding.
Okay, that was good.
Thank you.
Even late at night, you still got it.
Thank you. Please continue. Please continue.
No, but I mean, I think it's really cool to think about, like, high school orchestra kids who normally sit in a chair in front of a Wenger stand and play the music that's set in front of them. And here's a teacher, his name is Levi Olson. He actually had them create their own, develop their own alter ego, and then write a musical theme for their alter ego. And I mean, it was a very involved project. That's
brilliant. I need a theme song. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it was like it was a 10-week project for them. But the whole idea of exploring Afrofuturism and the whole superhero, this was like Black Panther.
Right. Sure.
Time. So anyway, so a lot of cool things have come from this workshop, and that's been my delight, is watching teachers that I know who had almost no experience in this space getting ideas.
Yeah. And what's great, obviously, when you bring in folks who, and again, having Jarritt's, direct influence, and also, you can't guarantee, but you bring in a sense of the need for and the respect for sort of authenticity, right? The authentic connection. Again, not token. That's the thing we worry about. We don't want people doing it for the sake of doing it. We've seen some examples, some viral examples of, maybe some kids incorporating hip hop into their music situations, and some of it's a little cringy when you say, like, are they really learning? So then we say, what's the first thing that you do? Are you connecting with these kids sort of culturally respectful way, culturally affirming way? And I think that's something that folks at this conference, at this workshop, are going to get by default. That's baked into the DNA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it a little bit. Again, anyone watching, we're doing this. This is great. First of all, again, honored to be asked to participate in this. I'll be keynoting it, kicking it off, giving some thoughts about, obviously all the things that might emerge from this discussion. We'll be talking about Jarritt's legacy as well. I'm going to put on the screen. Let's see if I can pull this off without making myself. Nope. Dang it! I'll get it. Why can't I? I can do it. There it is. Okay, look, and I'll put us over here. Nope. All right, there you go. Look at this. One day I'll get it all right. Let me move your name out of the way. Randy, tell me about this. We're going to talk about the 9 power-packed sessions for band, choir, orchestra, and general music teachers. I know Andrew Wang, who's, of course, a music educator up in Yonkers. Super excited about this entire program. The keynote is me. That's the smallest part of this whole thing, but I'm, again, honored to kick it off. And then we'll be talking about the next session is what we learned from Jarritt. And I'll just read the synopsis real quick. People don't know and don't necessarily, we're talking about Jarritt in such high regard. Jarritt Shield, one of the great minds behind this workshop since it started in 2020, died suddenly in 2022, but left a strong legacy and shaped our thinking, especially in his expansive view of how hip-hop can interface with traditional music education, i.e. Band, choir, orchestra, jazz, general music. We'll unpack some of his ideas and his influence. This is more of a panel discussion I think we're talking about doing.
Yeah, it's going to follow you. I mean, I just want to say about you, Manny, I smile every time I look at your logo, Hip Hop Can Save America, because it's so over realized, right? But that's what I love about it.
Right.
For the people watching, I actually got permission to use that logo because it just makes me smile all the time. But this
I appreciate that.
You say hip hop can save America, and people, it's kind of an eye roll, but I actually believe it. So I'm in that crazy camp.
You're the other one. Great.
Thank you. But I wanna. I mean, people come to this workshop. They want to experience some Black joy. They want to participate in the culture, in addition to getting some tricks for their classroom, right? But
sure.
For a lot of teachers, like this is their one day to sort of like be around Black artists who are in the culture, and so they do that. But your role is going to be like just to remind us of this larger vision, like why should we care about this, right? And I want to point people to your video. You and I could talk about using your video and stuff.
Sure.
But then that's going to kick into not just a kind of a tribute to Jarritt, because that could be 3 hours of people just sharing. I mean,
it was 3 hours. There was a whole. They did a whole presentation, a whole memoriam. Yeah.
I mean, Jarritt's had a big influence on a lot of people, and I didn't agree with Jarritt every single minute along the way.
Sure.
But he really got me thinking, and he always said, "Oh, you always get me thinking, Randy." We just shared that there was such a mutual respect, but he really did influence just my whole approach to like how I was going to put myself in this culture, like what I could offer to teachers, because I've been in music education for a really long time. So what I want to do is kind of pull out from various interviews, and also lots of people like Adam will be there, Adam Cruz, Vera Napati. Do you know that's a name you should know?
Oh yeah, I know Vera. Yeah, actually, I've been waiting to be in the same place at the same time with her for a very long time. We haven't done it physically, but at least we got it virtually. At least it's happening. So I'm very happy.
She's amazing, and she also was really influenced by Jarritt. They really clicked, and so she'll be there, and other people. Actually, Jarritt's wife, Antonia, is going to be there.
Oh wow.
She's just a dear friend as well. So, but the point is we're not just going to sit around for people who didn't know Jarritt or had no connection to listen to us talk about him. We're actually going to say like, what kinds of larger issues did Jarritt point to, both controversial and sort of encouraging and affirming and soothing, that can help us going forward. So
dope. Yeah, that's going to be wonderful. And again, in that vein, I guess the next session, the power of the cipher. So there are artists that will be participating as well, not just us, nerdy brainiac types. We're gonna have some.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna have some flavor in there. So maybe just a quick rundown of some of the performances we might see.
Yeah. So the other things are easy to talk about. Mother Nature. They were with us 2 years ago. This is a rap duo. They go in schools a lot, and but they perform all over the country. I mean, they're like hardcore, and they had a huge response when we had them. I think it was 2 years ago we had them, and people are asking to bring them back. So, but they've also, since they were in this workshop 2 years ago, they've been in Wisconsin a lot. They live in Chicago, working in classrooms, and so they're gonna. We're kind of formalizing what they're gonna do because they've got like a whole day's worth of stuff, and they're gonna just focus on like 75 minutes or so. And I think it's going to be work in the cipher, like literally helping teachers that have never done any cipher, anything.
Yeah.
Like, what would be the first thing you would do where kids could succeed and build that sense of community and the wisdom and the support and the beauty of the cipher and the circle.
That's brilliant. Yep. And necessary as well. So then, of course, there's a few more, and we don't have to go into everything in full detail. You can check.
Yeah, no, I won't. We've got to put for
I'm also-
every other kind of teacher: band, choir, orchestra, general music. And one thing I got to share: we have two amazing break dance guys. I mean, hip hop dance guys. Papa Kobina Priu, who is the founder of Hitters Collective here in Madison, and then Patricio Sierra, who's they're probably down there. There's Papa Kobina, and there's Patricio. Patricio's from Buenos Aires. He lives here in Madison too. These guys have won like international competitions as b-boys, and I said, music teachers don't think of breakdancing as that's not their jam, right? Like, I don't know, like how would I use that in my class? They're
Right.
actually show music teachers like how to look at breakdancing. What can you do in your class that's helpful to help kids hear the intricacies of hip hop, and then just teach them a little bit about like what's the difference between house versus street styles versus commercial, all this stuff
Sure.
about hip hop dance that I don't know about. These guys are great.
Yeah. And that's valuable. And first of all, it's always valuable when we bring in the other elements, because so many as we saw and we talked about almost ad nauseum last year with the Hip Hop 50 celebrations, the lack of attention to some of the other elements. So I know that there will be folks who will be championing, bringing in the other elements to this. Obviously, music and dance are so closely tied, and you can communicate via dance, and you can dance without music, but you dance and music go hand in hand. So I think that's a great addition to the program, and we thank you for that, for considering that element and the value there as well. So that's dope. And then again, like you said, specific instructions, whether you're an orchestra teacher, elementary, general music, I think you call it, the choir / chorus, and you have a beat making session as well, correct?
Yeah, Bill Rank, he's a middle school band teacher who came to this workshop. Another example of what you mentioned earlier. He came to this workshop last year, and maybe the year before. I don't know. Anyway, he came. He'd been teaching like an electronic music class with middle school kids, but he just was really inspired by this workshop, and he revamped his whole curriculum. And then when I saw it, I'm like, dude, you got to share this with other people, because this is like golden, right?
Yeah.
This is stuff that you would pay lots of money for, and he's going to give it for free on Saturday. So
That's
he's
just-
also, I mean, for teachers who understand this, it's like he can teach you how to do beat making with kids where you don't have a whole lab at your school, where all kids have is a Chromebook,
Right.
laptop.
Yeah, we've had some friends also from Breakbeat Code, a couple of other organizations that do that kind of work, and I've seen it. To just be able to say, how can we connect young people who may not be familiar with the computer except for, going to YouTube or doing the work on iReady or one of these platforms, to say, oh no, you can make music with your computer, the way I was doing Fruity Loops, years ago, and making remixes. So that's something they just don't see every day. They don't necessarily know that can happen. And when we see that working, Adam made a comment, as you can see on the screen there, about movement being separated from music. The separation of art from the body is a powerfully messed up tradition in music education.
Yeah, Adam knows.
Yep. And shouts to Adam. Adam has unofficially been on the show. We had it, one of the lost tapes. Let's just say one of the lost tapes. So we're gonna get Adam back, and Lamont over there as well.
Adam's got a lot to say. He's he's been thinking about these things for a long time.
We met at the global conference on hip hop education that was co-chaired by myself and Dr. Tasha Iglesias, who you mentioned earlier. So what's great is that we get to be in person with some of these great folk, and then this Saturday we'll be able to be virtually connected, which the power of the internet that we learned again through those troubling times in the 2020, that blurry, whirly thing that we can barely remember. We found ways to connect with folks, and I'm glad that it's continuing in these days. So with that said, I don't want to keep it too much longer. Randy, I really appreciate you coming through. What else do anyone who is interested in this program, specifically what might be happening in your district or this particular workshop that we're doing this Saturday, need to know? What haven't I asked you? What are you working on? What could we, when are you dropping your mixtape? Whatever the people need to know, let them know.
Well, I myself am always trying to do something with kids. My job is mostly working with teachers in the district, but I'm always filling in for somebody somewhere. So I'm working with kids every week, all year long, and I'm always looking for like the next cool project to see what kids can do. What can the average 11-year-old boy do with spoken word art over a beat and write a hook, that kind of thing. So I'm excited about that because it's a challenge for me. It's a challenge for me too, to keep pushing myself in this way. The workshop is not very expensive. It's only $50, and that includes not just being able to attend, but all those sessions are recorded. There's a ton of materials, a ton of curriculum, and links to the materials from the other workshops. You can go in and you can watch Jarritt teach.
The archive.
We have an archive. I mean, our goal is really to just get stuff out to people as cheap as possible. So we make this workshop. We've got students from Canada, from McGill, coming in Montreal because the collegiate rate is like $25. It's really cheap. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to once again post this in the comment section. If you're watching this later, you'll see it. If you're getting it now, get in on it. Like I say, this is aimed at educators, but as I always implore artists who want to learn or find opportunities to be more involved in what they can do outside of just being an entertainer, jump in on some of these sessions, jump in on some of these conferences. We have a lot of teaching artists who take part in these things, and you'll hear from people that are already doing it. You'll learn, hey, here's a way that you can get into, teaching kids or teaching, or teaching these workshops. It is another way that we can take our hip hop skill sets and provide value to the world. And I think that it's a great way it's a great opportunity to step into that arena if you haven't yet done so. So I encourage even artists, not just educators, to do that as well.
Amen.
Makes sense, right? All right, listen, I will be there, and I will. Like I said, I'm very honored that that y'all have reached out to me. I hope that I bring as much value as these other folks will to the program. I'm very excited about it, and I look forward to seeing it continue and grow in the future. Bob Knutson, if you're still out in the area, implore these folks to do it in person so that I can come to Wisco. Bob Knutson, a good friend of the show, who's out there. I don't know what part of Wisconsin you're in, Bob, and Bob's running for office out there. Connect with Bob Knutson. He's a good guy. But we got some Wisco people in the house. Isn't that weird? Why would you have anyone from Wisconsin on the?
Yeah, you'd be surprised, right? Knutson, man, that's a Wisconsin name.
It's I was watching Fargo, and there's some guy on there was named Knutson, and I was like, yeah, it's Knutson. So anyway, shouts to Bob Knutson, a big friend of the show and a big supporter, and we love our Wisconsin folk. So I'd love to come out there someday and check y'all out in person. In the meantime, in between time, we will link up 9 a.m. Central Time. Yeah. All right, so not good. An extra hour for me to sleep. 9 a.m. Central Time to 3 p.m. It's an all-day affair. Check it out. The link's in the chat. You can look it up on wsmamusic.org and follow our good friend Randy for all the things that he does in regards to teaching young people how to be, more musical in all the fun ways that hip-hop can bring to the table.
Manny, thanks for all that you're doing. Your passion really, it helps the rest of us, right? Like I just have to log on, listen to 10 minutes of you, and then I'm like, oh yeah, now I remember why I care about this. So we all appreciate what you're doing. I
greatly appreciate the appreciation, and it's mutual. When it like I said, when it falls on good ears, and then I see y'all doing the work, and that I could play some part in that. It's just, it's great. It's a community, man. We know how to. That's what hip hop does, right? It's community, and we're all welcome to the table. Just come in with your authentic self. And hip hop is the most inclusive, welcoming culture I think that's ever been created in humankind. So I'm glad that we share that communal friendship, and we'll talk again Saturday.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Be safe.
Bye-bye.
All right, once again, Randy Swiggum. We are rocking the 4th annual Hip Hop Pedagogy Virtual Music Educator Workshop on February 24th. It is an event that you can log in and register for. The link's in the comment section. Shouts to Andrew Wang. I know he's so excited about this thing, and Andrew has been dropping other gems. So if this is up your... I knew it was Oshkosh, Bob, but I didn't want to say like Oshkosh because I'm thinking like, yeah, sure, it's probably Oshkosh, and just be all stereotypical about, Wisconsin, locales. Do I know anywhere else? I know it's Outagamie County, of course. Actually, right? Is that where you are, or is that where Nettie was? Anyway, I know some things about Wisconsin, but I can't wait to get out there in person. I hope my friends over at that other podcast help make that happen. So once again, thanks to everyone who's been jumping in the chat. Adam Cruz, man, it's just a blessing to have you here, sir. I do appreciate you. I can't wait to talk again soon. Andrew Wang, of course, up in Yonkers, a supporter of the show. I will say this, hey, y'all. I mean, I hate doing it, so we'll just make it quick. If you find value in the show and you can, do the thing that people do, give a couple dollars a month, buy me a coffee every month, go to patreon.com/mannyfaces. It's a great way to just help me keep the lights on. Otherwise, the show will look like this. That's not a good show. It looks creepy. Why would you? No, help me keep the lights on. Otherwise, it looks creepy, and someone will call like Department of Child Services and say, this guy's a kid in this creepy looking place. We don't want that. So for baby girl faces to not be taken away by Child Protective Services, please go to my Patreon and just donate a little bit a month, $5 a month. Maybe it's not even for 3, 10. I don't even know. I have tiers. If you pay a little bit extra, you hear me mention Andrew Wang a lot, but he's a good guy, but he also is a supporter of the show, and I support everything that he does because he does that. So we'll definitely shout out all the things that you do. Please sign up for the free newsletter. I'll do that whether you subscribe, whether you pay me or not, and that's cool. But you'll get it for free, mannyfaces.substack.com, and we will have all kinds of... If you like this conversation, you're going to love that. It's hip-hop news that isn't about dumb-ish, a.k.a.
hip-hop news that isn't about dumb shit.
Not an AKA, it's equal, because I said the same thing it said, but I had to do it with flair. So we give you stories of hip-hop innovation across education, science and technology, health and wellness, politics and social justice, spirituality, the fine arts, all the pillars of hip-hop can save America. And Randy said he believes that hip-hop can save America, and I want to remind folks exactly what I'm saying. Now, you might have said, hey, listen, if we have kids who are more culturally adaptive and doing better music, that's great, but is it going to save America? I mean, yeah, in a way, because when you have folks that are coming up with that kind of multicultural understanding and affection and respect and understanding for other folks through this communal thing. Everyone connects to hip hop, but it's got to be done with authenticity. It's got to be done with care and intention, because we're not going to let this thing get bastardized. We're not going to let this culture get whitewashed and erased like all the other wonderful contributions to America that Black and Hispanic folk and have given to America, that America has stolen, shitted on and turned into profit. So we talk about authenticity. We talk about making sure that everything is done with intention and purpose. And if we do that, then we will, as Randy has talked about, as the folks who have gone through this workshop have talked about, have all the guests that have been on this program as a video podcast or as a podcast back in the day when it was just audio, have been like Jarritt Shield, the late, great Jarritt Shield, have emphasized that we can, in fact, uplift humanity in unique ways that only can come from the communities and the folks where the soundtrack of their lives was hip hop. So here we are imploring y'all, follow the show. I didn't even say it once, but I hope y'all are doing it because y'all know how this thing works. Like it, give me a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications. We're usually here Mondays live, but I drop like little snippets during the week. If you miss it, I take the interviews and I rip them and I throw them on the audio feed, and then I bring them back to YouTube as standalone interviews. There's a lot going on right now, and I really would love for you to pay attention. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, supporters, and haters. especially if they hate hip hop. Let's put them on to something. One time for your mind. I'm glad you like the bathroom break video, Ada. It's my favorite thing. And before we go, I just want to give you one more example from last week's. Let's see if I could play it. Last week's episode to give you another idea of what I'm talking about. This really struck me. Our good friend Dr. Adia Winfrey, Dr. D out now in Alabama, is doing work. And listen, you can say what you got to say about politics and the democracy and the two-party system. And I know we got a lot to talk about this year. We're going to talk about it this year. We're going to get into it here. I'm not afraid of it. You can also check out my other podcast that delves into this a lot. It's called Uneffing the Republic. And you can check out the Newsbeat podcast, which delves into social justice issues. But I will say that despite what you may think about political theater, this is an example. And this came from last week's show. And I just want to, if you missed last week's show, if you're here for the first time, just an example, y'all. Just trying to show you the type of stuff we on here.
I came into the civic engagement table, Alabama Forward, and it has been a complete blessing. We have made so many impacts within the state of Alabama. One thing that I got to mention is I was one of the original plaintiffs on the Allen versus Milligan case, which is that Supreme Court case that led to the new map in Alabama, which subsequently changed the redistricting map in Louisiana and Georgia, North Carolina, on and on and on.
Yeah.
And that came from the work that we have done with Transform Alabama. We have just really, really been intentional about using hip hop as a tool of political education and not just having to be about going to the polls, because I mean, it goes so much deeper than that, but really engaging people holistically in our political system.
Many faces.
You sick for this one. Sick for this one.
So yes, indeed, once again, just another example of how hip hop is literally being used to make change happen. And again, don't have to talk to me about how you feel about the political systems or this, that, and the third. I understand. We're gonna be talking about it. If you're in Atlanta, I'll be here. Boop. Hip Hop Congress ATL presents Hip Hop and Social Justice Panel. We're gonna talk about some of these things. I like to talk about some of these things. And that's happening in Atlanta, Tuesday, February 27th, 7 p.m., Atlanta Metropolitan State College. Once again, just a plug for something that I'm involved in. But again, I'm just a guy. I'm just going to be there breaking down whatever I could break down. Samaya Ali, who's an artist activist out here in Atlanta. Yamil Little, who's a great artist and doing some really groundbreaking work as well in hip hop art, is going to be there. Christopher Daniels, a historian, a journalist. Me, of course, you know me. And Bame Joyner. If you're in Atlanta and you're doing anything cultural or artistic, you know who Bame Joyner is. So he's like the cultural mayor of the city, does so much great work building up the Atlanta cultural infrastructure. I've been here for a couple of years. I'm a New Yorker that came to Atlanta. I did the thing that New Yorkers do. But I am very much appreciative and, I respect what Atlanta does in terms of their culture, their art, certainly with hip hop, but across the board. Again, as I often say, we from New York, so every other city, can kick rocks. We don't care about no other city. But Atlanta's doing some things, and it's definitely a beautiful area that's coming up and trying to figure out ways to deal with old Atlanta versus new Atlanta and all the things that are happening here. It's really interesting from a sociological point of view, but also from an artistic and creative point of view. Very welcoming if you come with authenticity, very hip hop. You come with authenticity, you want to be a part of the scene, you want to contribute to the culture, you want to not come down here and complain about the traffic, because that's what people do. And I'm like, did this traffic because y'all come down here? Like, I would never complain about the traffic. Because it's traffic because it's all us New Yorkers and stuff coming. Anyway, but Atlanta's doing their thing. Shouts to Atlanta. I had a great few days, last couple of weeks, my birthday celebrations. I went outside. I was outside. And I did a bunch of things in the city and just really... It's a good place, and I really appreciate the welcome and the love. So we'll be there at Atlanta Metropolitan State College talking about the intersection of social justice and Atlanta hip-hop. Again, I'm new to Atlanta, but I certainly know about social justice and hip-hop, past, present, and as I always like to talk about, future, what we need to be doing, not just what we've done in the past, and also what we are doing. A lot of times the efforts just like we talked about tonight, there's always something happening in hip hop that is forward thinking and futuristic and beneficial. It's not just we cannot get into that habit, and this is what this show is all about. So again, if you into this and you say, listen, Manny, tell me, because I don't get it. All I do is I watch the music and I hate it, and I hear the music and I hate it, and all these kids are doing dumb stuff. Come on, listen to this show a few times, you're gonna change your mind. So do that. So we've had our talk. Take this away because we've talked about it all. Once again, if you're watching on any other platform besides YouTube, please come over to YouTube. That's where we're going to be consolidating our efforts. So I do want everyone to come over there. We have almost 600 subscribers now. We started with like less than 100 like a couple months ago. People like what we're doing. So please share this with your friends. If you missed the show, go back and check it out. I'll be definitely dropping stuff. Turn on notifications. I might do some pop-ups. That's the next thing we want to do is kind of come on live with maybe something that happened that day and get you to share with us. Look, another video thing. We want you to tell us got things, because I want to create a safe space where we can have these, I guess, intellectual conversations, not get all emotional, but talk about the music and the culture on an elevated level. Make sure that we deal with the problems that the culture has, but also make sure we're talking about the solutions. I think some of them were expressed tonight by our good friends, Dr. Murray Forman, the author of that, the editor, one of the editors, but him and Mark Anthony Neal, the primary editors, and of course, Dr. Regina Bradley. That's the joint, the Hip Hop Studies Reader. Look at this book. This is filled with all the brilliance of hip hop from an academic standpoint. I read this like every week, like 2 or 3 times if I can. And what this is the 3rd edition, just came out in November. And what I'm really honored is that there's a section in here that has podcasts and newsletters. Remember, this goes to college classes. This is the Hip Hop Studies Reader. This is a seminal book. And Hip Hop Can Save America and my newsletter are listed in this book, and it's an honor and privilege. So I big them up and thank Murray Forman for coming and checking us out. So that's it. Let's see if we got any last thoughts in the comment section. I said hi to everybody. Once again, thanks to Randy Swiggum, who also came through talking about that. Natalie Cruz and yeah, I played that last time, Natalie Cruz, when I was asking for contributions to my Patreon. And then I was like worried I'd get like flagged for copyright, so I can't do that. But I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have a sad music song. This is brilliant. Andrew Wang says, "How can hip hop be dead if Wu-Tang is forever?" It's facts. Hip hop is never gonna die. Maybe, I mean, it's certainly not dead. All that talk is all that's ridiculous. But I don't know if it'll ever die. I think it's a really, really integral thing. Fair maps across America. Bob Knutson, is that a statement? Because yes, but is it also like an organization or something? Because that's cool too. So Dr. Adia Winfrey, who we spoke to last week, and if you didn't catch that whole episode, I just played you a snippet. What I'm trying to do is show you what you might have missed, so you're here every week. But also you can go back on the YouTube channel and watch that interview. She's a fascinating individual who does a lot of work on the political front. And again, you may have your feelings about the two-party system in America. And I think that, it's a longer conversation. We're going to talk about it. But I think there's certainly value to being politically engaged. And Dr. Dia Winfrey, being a true blue hip-hop head, not blue like blue, but true blue like the saying, but also blue, doesn't matter, was in there, ran for Congress, didn't quite get it, but started an organization. The organization is doing work that's now affecting, as Bob Knutson's saying, progress on redistricting and maps across the country. Now that, regardless of what you feel, we are in a two-party system, and that's what it is, but it should be fair. And redistricting and voting maps and drawing the maps is a big part of that. And if you're able to help fix that through hip hop, political movement, then that's a valuable thing. So shouts to Dr. Adia Winfrey, who's doing it. And we're going to talk about hip hop politics a lot this year. I definitely have some ideas and some folks that I want to get here. So once again, thanks, y'all. I mean, I don't got really anything else. I know I owe y'all a newsletter. I'm trying to do it all. I got so many other things happening besides keynoting this Saturday and then on a panel next Tuesday. I'll be at Fordham University on March 16th for the Hip Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference. That's a great conference. Again, if you're an academic, it's a great place to see what the youth are doing. They run the conference. They've selected the presenters. We just kind of mentor. But I will be doing a podcasting session. Actually, I'm going to be talking about how to use podcasting and as a form of journalism. I've done some sessions on hip hop as social justice journalism. And when I talk about hip hop as journalism, traditionally that's been music, right? The songs, as Chuck D, I think, once attributed CNN for the streets, right? Hip hop, rap. It's been a form of journalism, a form of archival, knowledge production for since its inception. And that's great. And for a time, that was all it could do because it wasn't in universities. We weren't having keynote presentations. We didn't have hip hop, in other venues that could be used to get a message out or to speak about the trials and tribulations of the communities from whence it came. It was just through the music. That's it. And what I like to point out to now, against some of the work that I do in the podcast realm, is that hip hop has this power to do this now, not just on through music. So a lot of us from the older generations, we lament that we used to get our political knowledge, I go back to the 80s and 90s when me as a white kid on Long Island was learning about the 5 percenters, was listening to Brand Nubian and Poor Righteous Teachers and KRS-One, You Must Learn, and finding out so much valuable information. My friends were, and I was in a black school district, and believe me, out in the suburbs, these kids didn't know about some of this stuff either, even though they were, culturally aligned. And so we all learned about this together. It's a great thing about hip hop is it's like a class for everyone sometimes. And we got our fight the powers, and then we got our later on we got our immortal techniques if you were into like sort of a little bit more of the underground, but you listen to folks who were doing that kind of stuff, the Brother Ali's of the world, the R.A. the Rugged Mans, and folks who were like really dropping a lot of information about society into their rap music. And that was where we got it from, because we couldn't turn on the news and get this stuff. We didn't have the internet like this. And now we say, listen, I listen to the music, and I don't have that anymore. And of course, older folks will be like, except for Kendrick and J. Cole, which is just the tip of the iceberg, because obviously there's thousands of artists that actually still do that kind of stuff. But if you look at what I've done with Newsbeat, and again, not to tap myself on the back, but we have a podcast that is journalism, but that also invites rap artists to drop verses to emphasize the journalism, right? We're interviewing activists and experts, and we're putting that together in a format that's unlike anything else. We like to say it's like Democracy Now! And Black Thought had a podcast, baby. And it's brilliant. It's won awards. And it's a format that we can use that hip-hop is able to get a message out or amplify a message that isn't a song on the radio. So when we say, we'd love to have more representation at the Grammys, although we have that conversation is longer too. And I thought that Killer Mike, having a substantive album win the Grammys is great. Or we need to have more protest music out in the world, as we've heard folks, ask for. Sure. But I want us to look at hip hop and social justice as there are hip hop minded folk. When Natalie Crew's on here, what Natalie Crew does with Culture Fix is not hip hop on the radio. It's not even music. They're not making songs. But Natalie Crew and Nora, are hip hop folk. With Natalie Crew and her other, because Natalie Crew is a genius and doing genius work. Check her out as well. Hip hop, Web3, metaverse stuff, like working in those areas. That's not always what you hear on the radio. But it's brilliant, forward thinking and groundbreaking. And that's social justice by bringing folk who don't normally get access to the tech world. The tech world has been traditionally, very exclusive. And by saying, hey, we're hip hoppers. We know how to smack it, flip it, rub it down. We know how to bring it and through the back door. We know how to remix it and remake it and make it ours. And by the time the traditional tech figures out what we're doing, we've made our money and we've moved on to the next thing because they're always following us. Hip hop has always had the industries follow. Look at mixtapes, look at streaming, look at all that stuff. Technologically, I do a whole keynote on this. I do a whole teacher PD on this. that for years the industry follows the innovation of hip hoppers. So if you're still doing that, that's social justice. That's giving an opportunity to the areas and the folks and the communities that have been traditionally excluded from these industries. Hip hop does that. Hip hop gets us into the education system to say, no, we're going to bring our authentic hip hop selves into the education. You're not going to tell the English teacher to come teach hip hop and they got to learn the curriculum and then teach it, or the African studies person, who may or may not be qualified to teach hip hop. We're going to come and tell you who's qualified to teach hip hop. We're going to come in and do that. So that's social justice to me. Has nothing to do with protest music or a song being on the radio. What we could talk about folks like Jay-Z, whether he's doing this or that, or, bailing people out of jail or making Khalif Browder documentaries. I think that's important. The NFL stuff notwithstanding. So are our, billionaires and our moguls, are they doing enough work outside of music, right? To help fund organizations and other things that are run by or staffed by hip-hop minded folk that always have social justice in the front of their minds and always have innovation right there in their pocket, in their DNA, in their wheelhouse. So anyway, now I did my little end of show rant. That's it. That's hip hop and social justice. We'll be talking about it here in Atlanta, past, present, and future. What we're doing now that doesn't get any love. I'm out. I'll be back next Monday. Peace and love to many faces.